game today features the Hokies of Virginia Tech and the Huskies from the University of Connecticut. And welcome to scores. Connecticut advancing to this second round with a win over Maine, while it was St. Joe's falling to the Hokies in the first round. Virginia Tech with a very experienced team to this point. Beth Mowens along with Sherry Levin. We're glad you could join us. Sherry, Virginia Tech has seen some tough teams all year long. Connecticut, Carolina, Virginia. They've got their best class ever. 4 seniors in the starting lineup.
They certainly do, Beth, and they go with Christy Osborne and Angela Donnell, who in the first round scored more than half the team's points. Osborne had 18 points, Donnell 16. Christy Osborne's the type of player who will let it fly from behind the arc. Very athletic, but can pull up on a dime. Angela Donnell is more of a type of player who will penetrate. If you leave her open, she'll look for that seam, and she'll take it to the basket.
Now, most of the viewers are already familiar with the proficiency in the paint for the UConn Huskies with Rebecca Lobo and Kara Walters. But UConn's also got the power and the pizzazz down low that has to be contended with.
Well, the power would have to be Jamel Elliott. The pizzazz, Nikisha Sales. Sales comes off the bench. But for Elliott, she's a real power player. She's a forward, sometimes overlooked, with Lobo and Walters. Nice feed from Lobo there, and it leaves Elliott wide open for the easy 2. Nikisha Sales off the bench can probably score at any time she wants to. A prolific scorer along the baseline, very creative offensive player, who when she likes to get the ball in her hands, will always think offense.
All right, let's check in with our courtside reporter, Rod Mashad, for some more analysis of tonight's game. Rod?
Virginia Tech has a very good team, a senior-oriented squad. Just one thing, on paper, they don't match up well height-wise with UConn at all. But who does, right? And if the Hokies don't hit a lot of three-pointers this afternoon, it will be a long, long game for them. And by the way, I will explain to you at some point at this game what a Hokie is.
All right, action. Here's our starting lineups with PA announcer Chris Monahan.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to the Harry A. Gamble Pavilion at the University of Connecticut for today's second round game of the NCAA Division I Women's Basketball Championship. Today's game features the number 8 seed Virginia Tech Hokies and the number 1 seed University of Connecticut Huskies. And now let's meet the starting lineups. At forward for Virginia Tech, a 5'10 senior from Burlington, Kentucky, number 24, Captain Christy Osborne. At forward for Connecticut, a 6-foot junior from Washington, D.C., number 33, Jamel Elliott. At forward for Virginia Tech, a 6'1 senior from Greensboro, North Carolina, number 34, Captain Angela Donnell. At forward for Connecticut, a 6'4 senior from Southwick, Massachusetts, number 50, co-captain Rebecca Lobo. At center for Virginia Tech, a 6'3 senior from Pensacola, Florida, number 35, Captain Jenny Root. At center for Connecticut, a 6'7 sophomore from Holliston, Massachusetts, number 52, Kara Walters. At guard for Virginia Tech, a 5'7 junior from Dublin, Virginia, number 10, Terry Garland. At guard for Connecticut, a 5'5 junior from New Fairfield, Connecticut, number 21, Jennifer Rizzati. At guard for Virginia Tech, a 5'9 senior from Sparta, Tennessee, number 32, Captain Lisa Leftwich. And at guard for Connecticut, a 5'6 senior from Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania, number 32, co-captain Pam Weber. And introducing the head coaches for Virginia Tech, Carol Alfano, and for Connecticut, Gino Oriema.
Much.
The Connecticut Huskies at 30-0. That, by the way, ties the record for most wins for the UConn women, and there you see how they've done in tournament play. 8-6. The Virginia Tech Hokies just picked up their first NCAA win in the first round in a 10-point victory over St. Joe's. Huskies, the #1 seed in the East in their home whites. Virginia Tech, the #8 seed in the darker uniforms.
And Beth, if there was any doubt on how Connecticut was going to perform early on versus Maine in the first round, that was put to rest probably about 6 minutes in the game, where they just blew Maine out the rest of the way.
Rebecca Lobo blocked underneath by Christy Osborne, and you can see the Hokies are fired up.
Well, they certainly are. I think they're taking a little energy away from this crowd as well. Here's Lobo, the good head fake, and then goes up strong. I don't know, there looked to be a little contact on that play, Beth.
Connecticut will keep it after the block. Hokies start out the 2-3-D. Rosati long on the shot. Lobo is fouled. And I believe that time Osborne called for the foul.
Rebecca Lobo, leading rebounder on the team, averaging 10.1. Rosati takes the long three, and there's Rebecca fighting for position, and with the outstretched arm comes up with the rebound.
Coach Alfano really on the officials for that call.
Beth, I talked about the Maine game. Connecticut set 5 school records in that game. One of them was for points with 105.
Lobo just inside the arc.
They picked up where she left off, and Maine took the first 2 shots, and they happened to be threes in Maine. You're right, this time just inside.
Virginia Tech in their second straight NCAA. They would have been up here in scores last year, but they lost to Auburn in the first round, and there's a traveling violation called on Donnell.
I spoke with Coach Alfano earlier, and she said they are going to try to take the air out of the basketball. They want to keep the ball out of Connecticut hands as much as possible. They want to be very deliberate and patient on offense.
Lobo will try for 3, in and out. Nice save by Donnell.
Talked about 4 seniors. Jenny Root inside, Christy Osborne, Angela Donnell, and Lisa Leftwich, 4 seniors in the starting lineup.
Huskies come out in the player-to-player. It really, Virginia Tech has 3 different weapons with Osborne.
See the shot clock down to 5 before they took the shot, and that's exactly the execution that Coach Alfano wanted. She wanted them to take time off the clock.
Lobo to Weber. Ham will try for 3. And Elliott called for a push underneath.
Pam Weber is actually playing a little under the weather, but cannot take any cold and antihistamine drugs because of the testing, of course, with the NCAA, so she's having to fight with that. Off the mark, and Elliott with a little bit of a push, with Chrissy Osborne getting the good position.
Huskies will go with full court pressure. This is Lisa Leftwich, another one of the seniors from Sparta, Tennessee.
Lisa had 12 points, 3 for 6 from the field, and 6 for 6 from the line for St. Joe's in that win in the first round.
Here's Leftwich. No good, but Jenny Root with the putback doesn't go. Another opportunity, and that may have been partially blocked, but Virginia Tech doing a nice job on the offensive glass, which you don't see very often against Connecticut.
And on your monitor, you might have seen Jen Rosati release. Beautiful pass. Lobo inside to Walters. We hear that combination, Beth, a lot of times, and that's 114 assists for Rebecca Lobo.
In that first round win, they combined for 41 points.
Actually, they also, Connecticut, one of those records set in the game was 4 assists when they had 27 during the game.
Osborne off the mark. Lobo has the board.
Hokies trying to get back on defense.
Lobo has it stripped. Hokies have the numbers. Leftwich over Weber, no good. Tech saves it. Leftwich. Hokies have come out cold.
Come out cold. It's a very physical game so far.
They are 0 for 7 on the offensive end. Again, Connecticut pounds it in the paint. Lobo. Second chance.
Virginia Tech now really looking to score. The one thing that Coach Alfano said, they had played Tennessee pretty tough. They beat Virginia early on, but they played Tennessee tough, and their problem, as you see here, was scoring 0 for 7. They've got some good looks, they just haven't been able to fall.
And an offensive foul called on Virginia Tech. That will go against Jenny Root. That's her first. Second on the team. And a substitution coming in. Number 30 is Cynthia Lee. She's 6'4". So Virginia Tech now with some decent size up front, 6'4", 6'3".
Virginia Tech won the Metro Conference regular season title, but then lost in the semifinals to a tough Southern Mississippi team.
Lobo up and under, gets the bucket and draws the foul. She's got 6 points and 5 rebounds. And Sherry, I think she was energized by that block early on.
I think she was, and you could see in her eyes that she was focused on this game. Beautiful inside look from fellow senior Pam Weber, who gets the assist. Pam Weber's second on assists in the team. And Lobo just takes it to an open area underneath the basket. At 6'4", Rebecca Lobo is so mobile. In fact, she runs the floor like a guard.
Yep. She will head to the free throw line looking for her 7th point.
That's number 131 assists for Pam Weber. Now she's just 8 shy of becoming the career leader in assists.
There's a steal for Rosati. Virginia Tech still over. Connecticut up 9-zip. Nice feed, Elliott.
And the pressure is something else that Coach Alfano said her team must get through.
I believe Rebecca Lobo has had a hand in all of the points scored for Connecticut.
They're going to be very deliberate on offense. We're going to have to constantly watch the shot clock for you. It's coming down to 10 before the shot goes up.
Leftwich finally breaks the ice for the Hokies.
Averages 7.8 points per game.
She had the 12 in the first round win over St. Joe's.
Their leading scorer, Jenny Root, number 35, only was 1 for 7, had 4 points.
Kept alive Rosati, and she's fouled by Leftwich. And Rosati comes up holding her hand.
Holding a little bit of that right hand, which you may remember. Take a look at it. Just, yes, there's a little bit of a whack on the right elbow. Now in the Big East tournament championship game for Seton Hall, she did hyperextend that elbow. And that's obviously everybody taking a good look at that as she tries to shake it off. But she's probably the toughest player that you'll see out on the court. There is nothing that will keep Jen Rosati off the floor.
And she converts on the first free throw. 75% from the line.
In fact, Jen Rosati, Rebecca Lobo, and Kara Walters were all honored in the AP All-America teams. Lobo on the first team, Rosati on the second team, and Walters on the third team. So that's 3 out of the top 15 players in the country, according to the AP poll, all from Connecticut. Beth, I believe that was the first time in the history that has ever happened.
And I'm sure if you polled the coaches on the top 15 freshmen in the nation, Nikisha Sales would be on most lists. She is now into the lineup, replacing Weber. Osborne, and she's fouled by Sales.
Sales doing a good job in getting to Osborne before she put up that shot. In fact, she was going to release, but she had to pull it down.
Usually doesn't take very long for this group of seniors to get things going. The most wins by any class ever in Blacksburg, 76.
And you see their first Metro Tourney title, second straight NCAA appearance, and obviously a school record 24 wins. Just a great class, a great recruiting job by Coach Alfano. Because they're in the Metro Conference this year. Next year they will head to the Atlantic 10 Conference, which will take on a new look, as well as the Big East Conference. You see, as always, big difference in the game. Connecticut with 8 points in the paint. And Virginia Tech just with a deuce on the board. Came from outside and just shooting 1 for 8 from the field. 12.5%.
Take away Sales. Layup.
Nikisha Sales second on the team in steals with 88, 1 behind Jen Rosati, and she has such great anticipation. It's almost like she's very cagey. She'll wait and you'll make that pass once, but you won't get it in twice.
I was talking about.
She does. She has a great first step on the dribble, too, which got her around Sales. And she matches up pretty well, height-wise at least. Osborne, 5'10", Sales, 6 foot.
Lob, Walters over the defense.
Can't defend that, though. You cannot defend a high pass, someone 6'7". In fact, there was even Root. Jenny Root was standing directly in front of Carol Walters.
4 for Walters. She and Lobo combined for 11 of the 16 Husky points to this stage. Donnell can't find any space to go baseline. Shot clock coming up on 5. Osborne once again. Different result, but it kicks all the way back out on top to Garland.
Exact same play. They're running a weak side screen. She's coming up top. Seems to have that shot open.
Anything they can do to get Jenny Root into the flow of the offense? She only had 4 points in that first round game.
Well, she was 1 for 7. St. Joe's was the team that was double teaming her. And the coach said she didn't get rattled. A couple years ago, she might have put her head down and got really shaken up by it. But yesterday, she decided, okay, what I'm going to do is pass the ball to my open teammates. Donnell trying to go inside. And actually, she just loses control. It should be Connecticut's ball.
She lost it on the way up.
We had the benefit of replay, of course,
True.
Beth. we can sit back here and criticize all we want, right?
Our hindsight's always 20/20.
See turnovers. Connecticut doing a great job handling the ball. That's number 5 for Virginia Tech.
Carla Berube now into the Husky lineup. And she chases down the errant pass from Rosati.
It was interesting in the press conference with Coach Oriema. That's got it. Bottom of the net for Jen Rosati.
6 straight field goals for the Huskies and 6 turnovers for Virginia Tech.
And Coach Alfano saying, look, you know, we're seniors out here. Just calm down. Play our kind of game. We're not in any hurry, and that's what this Connecticut team loves to do. They play the transition. They play the up-tempo game. They want to sucker you into that and just suck you in. Points off a turnover. Virginia Tech none. That's because Connecticut doesn't have a turnover. And 10 points for Connecticut.
19-4. UConn jumping out to an early start. I should say a good start.
There's her first turnover of the game.
Hokies in transition, taken by Rosati. Rosati with the left hand. She now has 6.
And you just see how Jen Rosati knew where the defense was. She felt them on her back. You saw she even gave a little peek, and that's why she went up with her left hand nice and soft. Shielded the ball away from the defense.
Stripped and then taken away by the Huskies.
Defense is stifling right now.
Rosati through traffic and a block called on Terry Garland. That will be the first on her.
Jen Rosati just playing with a reckless abandon right now. 100%. She is going full tilt on offense and defense. And I think Sam Weber is going to come and give her a little breather. Well deserved.
Now the nickname of Virginia Tech is the Hokies. That is just a made-up name to fit a theme song for the school. Here is the song.
Hokie, 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 high, tech, tech, CPI, Solar Art, Polytech, Virginia, Team, Ray, CPI, team, go Hokies, go!
Thank you very much, Rod. Back to the action, same place we left off. Before the timeout, Jamel Elliott with an easy 2.
And a beautiful look underneath. And I think, Beth, a lot of people were wondering what a Hokie. I was wondering what a Hokie was.
Did not know what a Hokie was. One of the mysteries of college basketball.
Virginia Tech putting in a little taller lineup with 6'1" Michelle Hollister in the game, number 14, and they go inside to Jenny Root, their 6'3" senior leader.
That is the first personal on Walters, 3rd on the Huskies.
Jenny Root, their leading scorer and the Metro Conference Player of the Year, was just 1 for 7 yesterday, 2 for 4 from the foul line for 4 points. Normally averages 16.5 points. Well, St. Joe's did a good job in shutting her off. It was the rest of the team that picked up their play.
Root with her first point. Hokies were very proficient at the line yesterday. In fact, that was one of the big differences in the game. They were 17 of 23 from the stripe, and there's Root getting both. 23-6, Connecticut.
There's Carl Berube in the game. Both Berube and Sales, when they come into the game, they're instant offense. They will always look for their shot and a way to score.
And Berube, after a couple of rebounds, is fouled on the play by Cynthia Lee.
Cynthia Lee at 6'4". Right now, very tall lineup for the Hokies. They have 6'4", Cynthia Lee, 6'3", Jenny Root, 6'1", Michelle Hollister. Virginia Tech not being able to solve the offensive woes. 2 for 12 from the field, just 17%. In Connecticut, a blazing 63% from the field. And they're doing that because they're getting those high percentage shots in the paint.
Just the second turnover for the Huskies as Nikisha Sales travels with it.
Look at Coach Oriema, the Big East Coach of the Year, as well as in the Women's Basketball Writers Association. Named the Coach of the Year. Rebecca Lobo was named the Player of the Year.
Trying to become just the second unbeaten national champion. And Michelle Hollister was out of bounds, so a turnover will give it back to the Huskies.
Finish that story, Beth. It was Texas in 1986 that went 34-0 from start to finish. A lot of other teams had undefeated regular season. One of those happens to be Louisiana Tech in 1990, who lost their Final Four semis to Auburn. And Connecticut, they're seated in the same region, just may meet in the East Regional Finals.
Elliott underneath, uncontested.
Just perfect execution on that play. Walters double team. Coming to you, Beth.
Just out of my reach. Just out of Osborne's reach as well. Turnover to Connecticut. 16 points off of the giveaways for the Huskies already here in the first half. They'll try to make it 18 or 19 on this possession.
Both Walters and Rebecca Lobo make that low pass from either the high post or even the middle post so well, and their teammates expect it. And there's great give-and-go backdoor. Unbelievable basketball right there. You cannot play any better than that. That is beautiful basketball.
Hollister short on the shot. Osborne able to keep it. Stripped by Sales. And Nikisha fouled on the drive to the hoop. Lisa Leftwich, the guilty party. That is her second personal.
And that's Judy Stroud with the call underneath. And Judy called it on the floor, so that will just be a one-on-one situation. Once again, that great anticipation, and Sales will take it strong. She will take it at you no matter what.
Substitutions now as Elliott and Weber check out. Rosati, Sales, Lobo, Berube, and Walters in the Connecticut lineup. Garland, Hollister, Leftwich, Root, and Donnell out there for Virginia Tech.
Keisha Sales, the Big East Rookie of the Year.
And this is one area of her game share that she can use some work on. A 61% free throw shooter.
Actually, if you look at Rebecca Lobo, she's back in the game. Went 0 for 5 from the line yesterday against Maine. Actually, that was Thursday. That was one of the only areas that you could possibly look and find as someplace where she could improve upon it. You know, Coach Oriema said is they can have a bad game and beat a team like Maine and Virginia Tech with the talent that they have, not to take anything away from these two teams. But when you start getting on in the NCAAs and you start dealing with teams who have been there a number of times and who have the record to support it, then you really can't make those mistakes. And that will be a travel on
Donnell. And of course, really, it'll be the next round where you'll run into those teams. If the seedings go according to plan, you'll have 4 teams in this regional with Final Four experience. Virginia, Alabama, Louisiana Tech, and the Huskies. Of course, the Texters and the Tide were there a year ago.
And Leon Barmore has a number of Final Four and a number of national championships under his belt. The head coach of Louisiana Tech.
Lobo jumper from the foul line, in and out. Hollister clears the glass. 9 minutes to go, first half, 29-6 Connecticut. Connecticut with another defensive rebound.
And it seems that the Hokies are now playing Connecticut's game, the up-tempo game. Coming down and taking the first available shot. Good catch by the assistant coach.
Pass into the Hokie bench. Ever since, Sherry, I mentioned that they had hit the offensive glass well there in the first couple of possessions, they haven't had many second chances.
No, they haven't. Connecticut doing a good job defensive boards. They haven't had to do too good a job on the offensive boards because they've made most of their shots.
Christy Osborne back into the Tech lineup now.
Tech comes in here with an at-large bid, ace seed. They've out-rebounded their opponents 21 of 31 games.
Nearly taken by Berube, and a foul way out on top called on Carla. That will be her first. Only the team's fourth.
Connecticut foul on number 31, Carla Berube, her first personal
Huskies
foul.
will show 2-3D.
Coach Oyamba with 222 wins to just 81 losses.
And almost picked off by Kim Better.
Let's talk about tournament experience. Connecticut is making their 7th consecutive NCAA appearance. Of course, their most notable was a trip to the Final Four in 1990. They went to New Orleans. Behind All-American Perry Baskin.
Garland swings it around to Osborne. Three-pointer is good.
Three-point basket by Christy
Christy
Osborne.
Osborne has 5.
Osborne was named a GTE COSIDA Academic All-American.
Carl Walters from Rebecca Lobo.
There's that combination again. Lobo to Walters. You know, you don't realize you can make a good pass when you can see over and through the defense. Rebecca Lobo at 6'4" can see right over the guards up top. Makes it a lot easier to make that good pass.
You talk about Christy Osborne with the All-American academic skills. She's a teammate of Rebecca Lobo's on that club. They can go toe-to-toe in the classroom as well.
That's right, first team for both of them. In fact, this is pretty amazing for Osborne, has never received a grade below an A- at Virginia Tech.
Not happy with the 2. She wanted the foul as well.
She did. She snaked right through the defense. Traveling on transition basketball, Jen Rosati driving to the basket. Whenever she sees a little opening, she is going to attack the basket. And yes, we're going to take a look at it. Boom, there's the foul. Jen Rosati certainly does know what she's talking about in that situation.
Husky fans here at Gamble and at home enjoying this one so far, 33-9, UConn.
Once again, turnover points off the turnover story. Virginia Tech, 12 turnovers, no points off. Connecticut's just 3 turnovers. Flip side, Connecticut taking advantage with 20 points. You know, Beth, the power of Connecticut Public TV, you had announced the other day that there were 600 tickets remaining, and in for this game, and in 37 minutes, yesterday morning, they were gone.
We did a little math. Granted, neither of us are outstanding at that particular subject, but that's at least 150 people made it out to scoop up those tickets in a hurry on Friday morning.
Well, you have to add the fact that you could only, the most you could buy was 4 tickets. That's how we came up with 150. There we go.
We should ask Christy Osborne, perhaps, double check that for us. Coach Alfano was looking for a foul inside.
Virginia Tech just shooting 3 of 17 from the floor, 17.6%.
There's Osborne left alone, in and out.
Sales with the 1 on rebound. And once again, Connecticut, they are not resting. They are bringing the ball up and they are trying to attack the defense. Virginia Tech settling into a 2-3 zone. Connecticut being pretty patient and deliberate here.
Under 10 seconds on the shot clock. Elliott misses on the layup.
Good execution. Jamel just did not knock that one down.
That's going to be a situation too, I think, Sherry, in the upcoming games for the Huskies. They're going to have to rely a lot more on the half-court game. Although the running game has been stellar at this point.
As you said, if all the seeds hold true, it would be Connecticut playing Alabama in the Sweet 16. And Alabama, as you mentioned, mention a Final Four team from last year, another first-team All-America. Pretty finish and a pretty look. They are relentless. But as I say, Nisha Johnson is another first-team All-American.
5-second violation called on Garland.
And you see the defense is what fires up Jamel Elliott.
Entering the line at number 50,
it's a defense and a great assist that really get this team going. There's Elliott with the rebound. You see Arizati dribbles with her head up, sails in front of the pack. We saw her do that a number of times in the Big East championship games.
13 turnovers now for Virginia Tech. Sails 3, long, gets her own rebound.
Gets her own rebound with Lisa Leftwich draped all over her.
Elliott hands off to Berube, and traveling violation called on Berube.
That's a little handoff pass. They run that play very well off the top. That was the second time we've seen that this game.
5 turnovers for Connecticut. We usually see Jamel Elliott is more of a passing quarterback, but she's been handing off today.
She certainly has.
And with Sales or Berube as your running back, it's not a bad strategy.
That's right. As a Washington Redskins fan, as Jamel outside of Washington, D.C.
There's Christy Osborne for 2 more.
And Osborne beginning to heat up. 7 points. Had 18, was a team high score. Played 39 minutes for St. Joe's.
Sales has now missed on a couple of threes. Hokies into double figures, 35-11 Connecticut, 4:15 to go in the first half. The winner advances to the Sweet 16. That will be right back here at Gampel Pavilion in a week. And a blocking foul called down on the baseline.
And that's just going to be 5 team fouls. That's Lobo's first. Beth, you talk about the way this Connecticut team comes out right from the opening tip. They seem just more ready and more focused to play, and perhaps that a lot has to do with that the opponent is a little bit intimidated by the crowd, perhaps by the awe of what everybody says about Connecticut. And before they experience the actual playing against this team, they're down by 20 points. Right now, Virginia Tech seems to be settling down a little bit, but they're in a 24-point hole.
Double dribble called on Garland. With 3:51 to go in the half. Huskies 35, Hokies 11. Back with more basketball on CPTV after this.
There you see the score. Rod Mashad here back on the baseline. You know, maybe a little bit premature, 4 games early, but I think this is one of the great teams in college basketball history. I don't know what the University of Texas was like in 1986, but this UConn team has to be as good, if not better. When we look back at this UConn team 10 years from now, we will be saying this was one great college basketball team.
Thank you very much, Rod. 35-11 Huskies. And there you see about the dancing shoes, and Connecticut's been wearing them.
7 straight. Tennessee and Louisiana Tech has gone 14 times in their tradition. Virginia 12, Western Kentucky 11, Stephen F. Austin 10. Stanford and Vanderbilt 9. Connecticut's like the newcomer in the group.
They're the babies of the bunch. And in fact, all those clubs, with the exception of Stephen F. Austin, still alive in the tournament, and they were knocked out by Seton Hall.
That's right.
Second personal on Nikisha Sales.
Seton Hall, the Big East runner-up. Coached by Phyllis Mangina, a coach also in her 10th season, came in to the Big East Conference along with Coach Oriama.
And they have a tough task tomorrow, playing against check that, they'll be playing later tonight. Against North Carolina, the defending champs. That's out in the West Regional.
Seems to be the upset time, though. Another turnover. Make that 15 for Virginia Tech. Just 4 for 20 from the field.
Huskies have converted that into 20 of their 35 points.
See Pam Weber back in the game number 32, has never missed a game in her entire career. In fact, today, Beth, her 127th game ties Wendy Davis for most games played in history.
By the time she leaves, she will have spent more time in the Husky uniform on the floor than anybody. Elliott doesn't get it to go. Good defense from Donnell, and the Hokies will get it. There's Pam Weber.
120. In fact, I saw her parents the other day, and they said, you know, she's not feeling too well. So there's no way she's not going to be on the floor.
Yep.
She'll try to play herself right through it.
Nice article on Rebecca Lobo in People magazine, and Weber made a cameo. They were both brushing their teeth as roommates.
Roommates since day one. In fact, they come home from vacation. Rosati get a little bit rambunctious on the defense. But Rebecca's mom was saying that she'll come home from vacation and be home a couple hours, pick up the phone, and call Pam. Talk for 2 hours. Her mother said, what can they possibly be talking about? And I'm sure most of us can relate to that at some point in our lives.
Talking on the phone for 2 hours?
For 2 hours. Well, so when you saw all day in school, I guess.
Yep. Christy Osborne, 7 points, make it 8.
Christy was also the Metro Conference Scholar Athlete of the Year, and you go tit for tat. Rebecca Lobo was the Big East Conference Scholar Athlete of the Year, also for the 2nd time.
Osborne probably the main reason they are still alive in the tournament. She had a big game against St. Joe's, 18 points. She's got 9 now this afternoon.
And in terms of longevity, she has also started the last 106 games for the Hokies.
A foul on the penetration from Rosati. That will go against Leftwich, I believe, and that could be 3. That is the 3rd on Lisa Leftwich. And according to the media guide, she is their top defender, so she will have to sit down now as Terry Garland checks back in.
Terry Garland, leader in assists for the Hokies. Only had 4 points in 37 minutes, but had a number of assists for St. Joe's.
And Rosati misses on the free throw, but it's tipped to Walters. Connecticut will reset. An offensive foul called on Kara Walters.
Walters fighting for position underneath against 6'3" Jenny Root.
2nd on Walters. And the Hokies are in the bonus.
At the line for Virginia Tech, shooting 1-1, Jenny Root.
Kara was the MVP of the Big East tournament. Had a career-high 32 points for Seton Hall, and the day before in the semis had 25, going 12 for 15 from the floor. So her game is continuing to improve every time she steps on the floor, and that's only good news for the Huskies.
Jenny Root to the line. She continues to struggle. Lobo clears the rebound with authority.
That's for sure, with authority and an elbow, which backs up the authority.
Yes, back to player D. For Ruby, flashing through the paint, in and out. Elliott keeps it alive.
And that time Jamel snuck it underneath Angela Donnell. Play before she was shut out. Remembered that one. Went up with a little extra mustard.
Jamel with a little snarl on her face after that hoop too. She worked hard for that bucket.
Most of these players you don't want to mess with. I mean, you play a good solid game, and if it gets physical, it'd be on the other team. I wouldn't want to be matching up against these players.
Traveling violation called on Jenny Root.
Replacing Angela Donnell.
1:45 to go, 37-13, Connecticut on top. First half action here, this NCAA 2nd round battle in the East. The winner will get to play back here next Thursday. And Rosati fouled by Garland.
Jen very aggressive offensively. Really trying to cut that defense up.
Number 10, Terry Garland, her 2nd personal foul.
Takes the opening, splits the seams right at the top, a little reach, and then from behind, Terry Garland looks like she gets a piece of the ball as well as a piece of Rosati. Jen Rosati was also on the 2nd team Academic All-America. What a tremendous year Rosati has had. 21 points in the game versus Kansas on CBS, 7 assists and 1 turnover, as well as 21 points versus Tennessee in that tremendous victory here at Gamble Pavilion, and since then, 8 weeks ago, they've been the #1 team in the country.
Christy Osborne short on the 3. Rosati comes away with it. Huskies on the go. Weber feeds Lobo. 3-point play opportunity. Another assist for Weber.
There's so many ways that Pam Weber contributes to this team. See how she just waited for Rebecca to get in a position where she could catch the ball and do something with it. She could have shot, but Jenny Root there might have blocked it. She just waited very patiently, just an extra second, and that was just a beautiful pass and a beautiful finish.
Lobo misses the free throw. She's got 9 points.
All but 4 games this season, not in double figures.
And there's the first basket for Jenny Root. She now has 4, and Virginia Tech was in danger of scoring the least in one half in an NCAA game. All time, that was 14. They now have 15. And Berube gets 2 more for the Huskies. It's Carla's first bucket. Working inside, Cynthia Lee, no good.
No good and no chance. Going up with a double team, Elliott and Lobo.
Rosati, the hesitation, and she draws the foul out top on Michelle Hollister.
Jen Rosati definitely looking to attack the basket in the defense. There's the reach. Once she splits the seam, you see she's either going to look up, she's either going to take it herself if there's an opening, or she's going to look for one of her teammates filling in the lane.
Second personal on Hollister. Rosati to the line.
She became the 11th player in Connecticut history to score 1,000 points. She did that in the last regular season game of the season, February 27th, versus Villanova.
11 points for Rosati. She had 10 in the first round game against Maine.
And averages 12 points per game.
Her dozen leading the Huskies right now, and Kim Benner and Kelly Hunt checking into the lineup. As Rosati and Lobo head to the sideline, 35 seconds to go in the half. First time in the postseason that we've seen Kelly Hunt in the first half of play.
Kelly averages just under 7 minutes per game.
Stolen by Elliott, and then Jamel called for the travel. She tried to run with it before she had it.
That's the good, the bad, and the ugly. She got the good, which was the steal, and the bad, which was the travel. Haven't figured out what the ugly was yet. It just sounded good.
It came out well. Hokies can hold it for the last shot, but Root has an opportunity, and she will take it and hit it.
Well, Lefty had 11 double-doubles this season. They need her to start putting some points up.
Knocked out of bounds by Connecticut with 1.9 to go in the half.
Well, here's a chance to practice those last-second shots. Let it go.
Tech doesn't get it off in time. 45 to 17, UConn. The turnovers from Virginia Tech leading to the transition game for UConn, and that was the difference over the first 20 minutes. That's the end of the first half of play. We'll be back. Our score at the intermission, Connecticut well out in front of Virginia Tech, and welcome back to Gamble. Beth Mullins along with Sherry Levin. And Sherry, Connecticut was able to take the Hokies right out of the game from the get-go, and Virginia Tech was not able to recover.
They certainly weren't. Connecticut completely focused, and it shows from their offensive attack and their execution. They did just about everything right. And we see early on, though, for Virginia Tech, it was Osborne who took responsibility offensively from the three-point line. 1 for 4, though. 9 points for Osborne. They also, the lefty, Jenny Root, the leading scorer of the team, a little better than yesterday. 2 for 4 from the field, 2 for 3 from behind the foul line. Attacks the defense for the open 10-foot jump shot. And for Connecticut, starts with their defense so many times. Jen Rosati with the quick hands, with the quick feet, comes up with 1 of her 2 steals. And the determination, the effort, and she finishes it off for 2. And Rebecca Lobo, as usual, underneath, just impossible to stop. You see the great hand. She goes up high to catch it. then around for the reverse layup and the potential three-point play. So thanks her teammate for that assist.
Yep, statistics from that first half of play. Tech doing a decent job on the glass, but the turnovers were hurting them.
And the points off of turnovers. Connecticut with just 7 turnovers, keeping great control of the basketball, but 20 points off of that. And field goal percentage, 25% for Virginia Tech. Connecticut shooting over 50 at 53%, and that's the big story. Points in the paint. Virginia Tech with 4. Connecticut with Connecticut a blazing 32.
All right, let's check in now with some insight from Rod Mashad standing by courtside.
It's key for Tech here to hang their heads up high. They have 22 wins. They have to come out and try to make a game of this in the second half. All right, the first half was tough on them. The points in the paint show that the Connecticut dominates the glass. What Tech has to do here is get the ball inside a little more and try kicking it out to set up that open three-pointer. They're going to have to get a couple of three-pointers to try to make something of a game of this, Beth.
Thank you very much, Rod. The Hokies 4-7 when trailing at the half. And Connecticut 34 wins in a row here at Gampel Pavilion, trying to make it 35 and advance to the Sweet 16. The East Regional will be back here at Gampel next Thursday. The winner here will move on to next weekend's activity, and a block for Rebecca Lobo. Lobo, Rosati, Weber, Walters, and Elliott out there for Connecticut. Leftwich, Garland, Osborne, Root, and Donnell for the Hokies. Nice dish, Lobo to Elliott.
Beautiful assist, make that 5 assists on the game for Rebecca Lobo. Had earlier on the defensive end, she had a block, and then comes up with a great pass. This is such a team-oriented style of play for Connecticut. 5 players averaging in double figures. Very unselfish. Sometimes they look for the spectacular.
Yep. Leftwich, another block, 2 already here for Lobo in the first minute of play.
Talk about intimidating. You can imagine what's going through the player's mind as they approach even Walters and Lobo, and Terry Garland nowhere to go with the 2 of them just standing in front of her. I mean, that's what they do. They are tenacious and intimidating.
Had to force that one up with the shot clock winding down. Huskies by 30. In case you're wondering about Rebecca Lobo, the number 2 scorer all time at Connecticut, she would need to average about 24 points the rest of the way if the Huskies were able to advance to the championship game in order to catch Carrie Bascom all time. And that pass, Rosati over the outstretched hands of Walters out of bounds. Today so far, Lobo with 9. Rosati leading the way with 12 for Coach Oriema's troops. Huskies will come out in 2-3.
This is where Virginia Tech becomes a little bit deliberate, trying to get something, but again, it's a triple team defense.
Pass picked off by Elliott. Turnover problems continue for the Hokies. And then Rosati, foul called on Garland. She thought she had all ball, 3rd on Garland.
We're gonna look at the low angle. This is where our hindsight 2020 comes in. Ooh. And Garland had a good point right there.
Good case. Good case could be made.
That's the 3rd personal foul. When in doubt, throw it up tall. To Walters for the hook shot. You know, Beth, I wonder if Kara Walters was taught that hook shot by her dad, NBA player for the Supersonics. Pam Weber had a little difficulty getting the ball in, so he just threw it up tall. So here you go, Kara. Jump.
And problems for the Hokies as Lisa Leftwich picks up her 4th personal foul. She's out of the game, replaced by Michelle Hollister.
That's short of getting a footstool or a ladder. It's pretty tough to stop that. I mean, you can jump as high as you want, and you're not going to come close to getting the ball out of Kara Walters' hands.
Walters completes the 3-point play. Got to get a broom or something like they use in practice to try and swat those away.
Number 14, Nikisha Sales, replacing Jennifer Rosati.
And Connecticut falling a little, still staying in that zone, but extending it.
Stripped. Sales gets the pass back from Lobo, but saves it to the Hokies. And then Sales took out a couple of cheerleaders running down the loose ball. He hustles back into play.
Good hustle, though, and even manages to get back on defense. Kara Walters with a hand in the face of Angela Donnell. Changed her shot.
Lobo running the break. From Pam Weber.
A beautiful catch. You saw control and a strong layup. 11 points for Lobo.
5 assists for Pam Weber. And a foul called on Kara Walters, the push from behind. She now has 3 personals.
And as we mentioned, Pam Weber just now 3 away from the #1 spot in assists in Connecticut history. What a terrific look. And of course, you know who you're passing to, right? So you see Rebecca Lobo out ahead, you give her that long pass. Somehow she'll find a way to catch and put it back.
There you see on the break, 16 zip. The interesting thing about that one is Osborne launches a 3 and connects. Weber kind of waved off Walters, who was the first player on the break, and then gave it to Lobo because she knew she had the safer bet of holding on to a loud pass like that on the run. Elliott called for an illegal screen.
I heard Judy Stroud loud and clear on that one. And the 3-pointer for Christy Osborne was her 12-pointer, second 3-pointer of the game, where she was quite proficient from behind the line. Just under 30%.
She's 3rd all-time in Virginia Tech points. In fact, her and Jenny Root, arguably the 2 best players in Tech history. Inside, Donnell, her first bucket.
Donnell had that 16.7 rebound game for St. Joe's.
There's a takeaway by Donnell.
Let's go on!
Quickly up floor to Hollister. Jenny Root. And she draws a foul on Lobo.
And the thing to remember with Root is she's left-handed. So she's going to want that tendency from the right side of the court to go into the middle, to use her left hand. Rebecca Lobo did not allow her to do that. She just sort of threw up pretty much a desperation shot, and Rebecca Lobo was called for a foul.
Second personal on Lobo. And Root to the line, a 64% free throw shooter. She is 2nd all-time in points at Virginia Tech, their all-time leading rebounder.
And interesting enough, she has had double figures in all but 2 games this season. The loss versus Tennessee and the win for St. Joe's just the other day, where she was held to 4 points.
Weber out, Rosati back in. Root, senior from Pensacola, Florida, connects on both. She now has 8. She and Osborne combining for 20 of the 24 points for Tech. And a miscommunication between Rosati and Berube out top.
Connecticut just a little bit sloppy.
And a timeout on the floor. And that was a timeout charge to Connecticut. Coach Auriemma a bit miffed at the turnovers and also a 7-0 Virginia Tech run. And Rebecca Lobo has piled up the honors this year for the Huskies.
Certainly, U.S. Basketball Women's Association College Sports Magazine Player of the Year, the GT National Academic All-American. Doesn't even include Big East Player of the Year for the 2nd consecutive year, the Big East Scholar Athlete of the Year, the AP First Team All-American. I'm sure you can add Kodak to that when that's announced.
Yep.
And she's still in the running and was leading at the halfway point for the Naismith Player of the Year.
Garland blocked by Lobo. In fact, I think that's coming out next week, isn't it?
I think you're right.
Naismith.
And Virginia Tech was on a 7-0 run the last 40 seconds. And I think for Coach Auriemma, you know, you can say, sure, Connecticut's game is well in hand.
Great pointer.
Especially with the good hands of Jen Rosati. 15 points. She's leading all Connecticut scorers today.
She's got a couple of threes. The other Naismith finalists, Sherry, Nikki McCray from Tennessee, Charlotte Smith from Carolina, Shelly Sheets from Colorado, and possibly right here at Storrs next week, Nisa Johnson from Alabama.
But for Connecticut, you know, they're looking ahead. They're not just happy to win these couple of games. For them, anything shy of a Final Four would be a major disappointment. So Coach Auriemma is not so much probably thinking about this game, but in his mind, he has to fine-tune his team to not make those bad passes and not make those careless mistakes.
Virginia Tech continues to struggle from the floor, shooting just 27%. And Coach Alfano all over the officials.
Coach Alfano in her 19th season at Virginia Tech, 271 wins to 229. As we mentioned, back-to-back 20-win season.
Another steal, Rosati stops and pops over Garland.
And I guess since that timeout, there was definitely one player who was listening with keen ears, and that was Jen Rosati. She has come out since that timeout, focused and playing tough. Here's Lobo with an almost block. Back to Jenny Root.
Nice follow by Root, 10 points. In fact, Rosati has 5 points since the timeout.
The lefty Root just stuck with that.
Rosati.
Perfect line for us, Beth.
Huskies are 6 of 6 in the second half. 20 points for Jennifer Rosati.
And that's Jen Rosati's 3rd personal foul. Playing the tough D. Scrappy player, plays with her heart and soul.
Sales checks out of the game. Kim Better is in. There's Rosati. 3rd personal, 20 points.
The one question I think, Beth, that people always seem to come around to is the fact that Connecticut being undefeated, what will happen when they get in that situation where they're either down by a couple, there's a good turnaround.
12 now for Root.
And that's what people seem to talk about. I just think that these teams as players are very goal-oriented, they're very focused. I don't think that should be a problem.
And a holding foul called inside on Virginia Tech. That will go against Cynthia Lee. And that is her 3rd personal.
Her 3rd personal foul, 3rd on the team.
This is Connecticut's 10th sellout of the season. 8,241 tickets sold. And Beth, as I was driving to the game, I don't know if you saw him, but there was a guy standing a couple miles away with a couple of tickets hanging out of his hand, trying to sell them. You see field goals this half. Virginia Tech 4 for 10. A little better.
Tough ticket to get in the stores. And another pushing foul called on the Huskies. That is Kim Better. She slammed into Jenny Root. 1st personal on Better.
Team 6. One more, and Virginia Tech will be in the bonus situation.
Connecticut foul on number 5, Kim Better, her 1st personal foul, 6th on the team.
Certainly a long way to catch up. And right now, the officials seem to be taking control of the game. You have to recognize that as a player.
Jamel Elliott, 3rd on Jamel. Looks like her and Root knocked knees on that one as Root comes out limping.
And once again, that's a bonus situation. Huskies playing aggressive defenses. Elliott on the trap. Ooh, just a little bit of contact. You know, that's the kind of thing where you could let go, but it seems now that the officials are saying to the players, we're taking control. This is the way we're going to call it. We are going to call it tight. Any hands, any legs, any shoves, we're going to call that a foul. So now you have to recognize that as a player.
13 for Jenny Root. She heats up here in the second half. Give her 14. She is now the leading scorer. Osborne with 12 for the Hokies.
And she's limping off the floor. Looks like that right knee is still a little stiff.
Virginia Tech substitutions, entering the lineup, number 34, Angela Janelli.
Right above the...
It might be a thigh. She took a knee to the thigh.
Entering the Connecticut lineup, number 15.
Elliott comes out with those 3 fouls. And Lobo back into the lineup.
And Jen Rosati also with 3 personal fouls is on the bench.
Walters also with 3 for the Huskies. Lisa Leftwich has already left the game with 4 for Virginia Tech. Cynthia Lee also with 3.
Great battle underneath between Cynthia Lee and Kara Walters.
And now it is,
and they finally called it.
number 4 on Lee.
Well, they were battling for position underneath.
Virginia Tech foul on number 30.
Fourth personal, and that's 4 personal fouls. We'll look at the physical nature of this play. Both teams fighting for position. Kara Walters going to one side, and that was the hole.
Lobo goes to the left for 2. 13 for Lobo. Coming up on 13 minutes to play, NCAA second round action here on CPTV. Huskies in control. Christy Osborne with 2 more. She's got 14. And the cushion is still 30 points, though Virginia Tech is playing much better, much more with confidence. Nice takeaway by Donnell. Leftwich off the mark.
But it certainly hasn't been easy for Virginia Tech offensively, Beth. I think in terms of transition baskets, they haven't had an easy layup in the game. They've had to work and scrap for every point they've got. They've almost doubled their halftime score to 17 points at 32 at this junction in the game. 12:18 remaining.
Lobo working on a triple team, draws the foul.
How she ever came up with that pass, you just have to shake your head and say, oh my gosh. Sandwich between Lee and Donnell, and then help from Michelle Hollister, and somehow Rebecca comes down with that ball.
Number 34, Angela Donnell, her first
That's the first personal on Donnell. Lobo off the dribble.
Fall-away shot.
Coach Oriema looking for a foul on the play. He's not going to get one.
And for Virginia Tech offensively, Beth, it seems to be a 2-women show with Osborne and Root scoring 30 of Tech's 32 points.
They have not gotten the production from another source. And a takeaway for better 30-plus turnovers now for Virginia Tech.
And there's Pam Weber following the play.
Nice little bounce pass. 13 for Walters, 13 for Lobo, 20 for Rosati.
And a great look, Rebecca Lobo. Took it to the defense, saw the opening for Walters.
Midway in the second half. Now for Connecticut, I think they thought they had this game won at halftime. They came out very flat in the second half, and Virginia Tech wasn't hanging their heads. They came out ready to play, and they've surprised Connecticut in the second half, and Coach Gino Oriema is pretty upset with his Huskies right now.
Huskies will have possession, 11:15 to go in the game. And Rod absolutely right. With every turnover, Oriema just kind of shaking his head a little bit, does not want them to get sloppy in the second half despite the big lead. Berube off the dribble. Nice pick by Lobo and then a putback.
Berube not getting enough oomph out of her legs, but there was Rebecca Lobo to save that play. 15 for Lobo. Let's see who comes fired up after that timeout.
66-32 Connecticut. That's the first personal on Pam Weber.
But Connecticut is in the bonus situation. 2 more team fouls Virginia Tech has to give before Connecticut goes into the one-on-one situation.
This is not the free throw shooter that Husky fans want to see on the line. She's Virginia Tech's best ever from the stripe. She's now 3 of 3. 15 points all told.
This year averaging 80.5%. Has that nice smooth stroke. Double figures all but 7 games this season for Osborne. Berube that time got to jump and the lift from her legs. All-time leading scorer out of Oxford High School. 2,190 points.
Huskies settling into a 2-3. Shot, foul line, no good. Stephanie Carter, senior from Morgantown.
Carter was a good lift off the bench for St. Joe's, went 2 for 2 from the field. That's the kind of production you want from someone coming in as a reserve.
Nice save, Lobo to Walters.
And Rebecca Lobo loved that one. Diving out of bounds, knew exactly where Kara Walters was.
And either Lobo or Walters got a piece of that one.
Number 1 in the Big East this year in blocks. And Lobo with another double-double.
Kara Walters now with 17 to lead all scorers.
As I mentioned, Lobo, 15 points, 10 rebounds, her 17th double-double of the season.
Also has 8 assists, going for the triple-triple.
Wow. Virginia Tech just 10 points in the paint. Connecticut make it, almost. Connecticut with 50 points in the paint. 5 times the production inside.
Berube, Lobo.
As we said in the timeout, Beth, I'd love to know what Coach Oriem is saying to his troops. And you know what, he should probably market that, whatever it is.
Bottle that thing. They've been on a tear since that last timeout. Better. I think that's 6 layups in a row.
On a run. You know, the other day, after the main game, Coach said, you know, I just guide these players. I just let them go. They're self-motivated. They have goals. But every now and then, I think he has to reel them in a little bit, get them refocused, and once he does, there's no stopping them.
12-2, Husky run.
Entering the lineup, number 12, Sherry Banks, replacing Lynette Nolly.
Substitutions, Better checks out. Missy Rose is into the lineup. And Jamel Elliott returns. Elliott with 10 points. And Kara Walters, a hearty hand.
And number 42, Nikisha Sales.
Sales now into the lineup, replacing Carla Berube.
Carla with a great floor game today.
Knocked out of bounds, another turnover, Virginia Tech. Keep your eyes on Jamel Elliott. She is 1 point shy of the 1,000-point mark. Teammates Rebecca Lobo and Jen Rosati already have reached that plateau in their careers. On Stephanie Carter, so a chance for Elliott to get 1,000 on the line.
Actually, Beth, that's how I got my 1,000 point. On the line.
On the line.
Virginia Tech foul on number 22, Stephanie Carter, her first personal foul.
10 points, 3 rebounds for Elliott.
At the line for Connecticut, shooting 2, Jamel Elliott.
And the official waving one of the players off the line, Elliott. Oh, the pressure getting to her.
Well, you know,
She's thinking about it.
Rebecca Lobo and her teammates didn't even know that Rebecca was close to 2,000 points, so I just wonder if they happen to know that Jamel Elliott.
Minutes and 59 seconds away from the Sweet 16, and a Sweet 1,000 for Jamel Elliott just a moment ago.
And Beth, the best thing about this is the fact that Jamel is sometimes overlooked. This is the reaction of her teammates, and she's certainly not overlooked by the importance of what she does on the floor by them. She's kind of like, oh, okay, what's everybody looking at me for? What'd I do now? And then she's like, oh yeah, that's right. And then that's just terrific because you know what, there's no place like home either. And she does it on this floor, and she gets the big welcome standing ovation from the crowd.
Root misses on the shot. Pam Weber up for the rebound. Swing it around to Missy Rose. Kelly Hunt also out there with Sales, Weber, and Elliott. So a small UConn lineup out on the floor. Swing it around to Hunt, and she's stripped of the ball by Leftwich. Over Weber, short on the shot. Missy Rose on the break.
Looking for some help. And Pam Weber, I think, a wise decision to take that one back out. She caught the pass underneath the basket, did not force.
And shot knocked out of bounds by Stephanie Carter.
I got it.
As Hunt catches the ball underneath, there's some good defense. Carter tries to get it.
Entering the lineup,
But
number
there's
34, Angela Denell, and number 10,
looks like
Terry
Jenny
Rollins,
Root
replacing Stephanie Carter
with
and
the
Sherry
block.
Banks.
Clean block leads the team in blocks. 37 this year.
Osborne, Leftwich, Root, Donnell, and Garland, the starters out there on the floor for Virginia Tech. Kelly Hunt with an assist to Jamel Elliott.
Elliott felt the double team around her. Just dished it off to an open teammate. Very unselfish basketball. Great execution.
And good defense from Hunt.
Virginia Tech 9 points away from their lowest point production on the season. They came in the second game of the year against Southwest Missouri State, where they scored 45 points.
And that is the
Virginia Tech foul line number 34, Angela Denell.
second.
That is Sarah Northway, the transfer from Arizona who will be playing with UConn in the 95-96 season. I'll tell you one thing about Gino Auriemma. This guy knows how to recruit. It started a few years ago, and it has just blossomed. His recruiting is as good as anyone's in the country, men's or women's, in any sport. That's why Gino right now is 30-0, looking to be 31-0.
And at the top of the screen there, Tammy Arnold and Amy Duran both selected to the Women's Basketball Coaches Association All-America game, which will be played next month.
And Beth's recruiting class was ranked number 2 by the coaches coming into. It will be freshmen here next year, and that's certainly nice to know. You have a team that's undefeated, and next year you have the number 2 recruiting class coming in.
By the way, the top recruiting class, Purdue, they got the what looks like will be the player of the year this year, as Nikisha Sales was last year, Stephanie White from Indiana, who will be headed to Purdue to join the Boilermakers. We've got 6 minutes to play. 81-34 Huskies.
It's just Weber and Elliott, the only 2 starters for Connecticut out on the floor. Of course, a little deceiving because Nikisha Sales could probably also be a starter.
Shot clock now down to 5. Weber's got to hurry.
And she breaks into the scoring column when she had to. The ball was in her hands. The clock was winding down. Pam Weber, also a 3-time member of the Big East All-Academic team.
She gets a hand on that one, and Hunt has it. Weber on the break, and that pass out of the reach of Missy Rose.
Connecticut substitution. Entering the lineup, number 5.
And Kim Better out there now, and Weber will head to the sideline. For Pam Weber, 2 points, 7 assists. She is now 2 shy of becoming number 1 in dishes here in Stores.
Number 2 spot held by Laura Lisnish that she passed versus Maine. Oh, behind the back, a little flash.
Nikisha Sales.
8. A little flash for Sales. The only way she could have gone straight ahead was to put the ball behind her back. We've just seen the tip of the iceberg when it comes to Nikisha Sales, what she's capable of doing offensively. And the amazing thing is there's not a player for Connecticut who averages over 30 minutes per game.
Nice look from Hunt to Elliott. One of the reasons, Sherry, I think that despite the routes that Connecticut has posted this year, nobody leaves Gamble Pavilion until the final buzzer because you don't know what you're going to miss down the stretch.
That is for sure. They'll never give up, and everybody wants to get in the action.
Elliott has 13. Drive by Garland, no good. And knocked out of bounds by Jamel. Check that, 15 for Elliott. And more substitutions, Brenda Marquis and Jill Gelfenbein. We talked about at the top of the program the power and the pizzazz. With a well-deserved round of applause, Sales leaves with 8 points and 5 steals.
Great trap right on the sideline. The worst place that you want to have the ball and have a trap. On the corner, the baseline, and the sideline. No place to go.
And you may have heard in the background, North Carolina leading Seton Hall 35-19 at the half out in the West Regional. And Christy Osborne gets the hoop and draws the foul. 18 for Osborne, looking for 19.
That's what she had in the first round. 18 points for St. Joe's. Averages 12.6 per game on the year, so she's sort of stepped up her performance in the NCAA tournament.
Yep.
And for Jenny Root, Christy Osborne, Angela Donnell, and Lisa Leftwich, 4 of the senior starters, this will be it for them as a Hokie. Officially, I guess. They may always be a Hokie at heart.
Hokie at heart. There you go.
32, Lisa Leftwich, replacing Sherry Banks.
19 for Osborne, a perfect 5 of 5 from the line, and Better called for a double dribble.
That's Larry Gosser on the call. Kim not quite knowing exactly why. Other official was Dennis Kelly. Actually, he's the alternate.
Osborne travels out top.
Had the right idea, though, had the good head fake.
Senior from Burlington, Kentucky.
Missy Rose usually gets about 9.7 minutes per game. She's one of the first players in that rotation after 8 that will get into the game.
Rose's pass off the hands of Kelly Hunt and out of bounds. Hunt had 4 points against Maine, as did Brenda Marquis. A couple of future frontliners for the Huskies. And off to Donnell. 4 points for her all in the second half.
Number 40, Jill Gelfenbein. She's on the Final Four women's soccer team, the goalie.
Under 3 minutes to play now, and Gelfenbein knocked out of bounds by Leftwich, so Connecticut will keep it with 8 seconds left on the shot clock.
Number 30, Cynthia Lee, replacing Jenny Root.
Jenny Root checks out of the game. 16 points for Jenny Root. Final game of her career at Virginia Tech.
Gives a little shrug to the coach as if, you know, I tried, coach. What can you do?
And just beating the shot clock, Kim Better. She will head to the line to shoot a couple.
Kim Better has played in all 30 games this season, had a career high 17 points versus Providence, January 11th. 4th on the team in steals. She does a lot of things right. They don't always end up on the scoreboard.
Better with 3 points.
One shot, ladies. Right.
But when it comes to hustling, nobody does it better.
4 for Better. And a foul called on Kelly Hunt. Cynthia Lee with some good work underneath. She will go to the foul line.
And it looked like Hunt and Marquis pretty much had that rebound under control, but the two of them went for it. Now with a good drive, a little hard off the glass. You see that Hunt and Marquis with both good possessions. And it's Lee who just kind of was hanging around and got the lucky bounce.
And a good hand for Christy Osborne as she checks out of the game. Senior finishes up her career with 19 points. Lee hits on the free throw. She has 1. And knocked out of bounds by Virginia Tech. Connecticut will get it with 2:39 to play, 89-42 Huskies. Next up in the Sweet 16, either Duke or Alabama, right here at Gamble Pavilion next Thursday.
Duke had that recent upset over Virginia in the ACC tournament.
Alabama coming off a spanking by Tennessee in the afternoon tourney. Hunt to Marquis.
And let the good times roll. It just continues. I think it's a little rubbing off. You know, the Walters Lobo deal is Hunt Marquis for this group.
And a foul, I believe, called on Marquis.
Take a look. There's Kelly Hunt. She sees a double team coming to help, which means somebody weak side's open. And Brenda Marquis, the lefty, fills that spot very nicely.
And another one of the seniors, Angela Donnell, heads to the bench. 4 points for Donnell.
Brenda Marquis' season high has been 10 points. That came versus Iona from Moosup, Connecticut.
Lee now 2 for 3. Short on the shot. Rebound, though, put back by Carter, no good. And the Hokies will get it back. Virginia Tech will finish up the year 22-9. And what Coach Alfano has called their best season ever. She's been there for 17 years.
It was the first time in her career as coaching, and Lee flying through the air for that rebound, showing her agility and her strength. For the first time that they entered the national polls was after January 13th, where they had that upset victory over the number 9 ranked at the time, Virginia Cavaliers.
Kelly Hunt, and she is fouled from behind. Will go against Stephanie Carter.
Stephanie Carter, a good reserve out of Morgantown, West Virginia, has also played in all 30 games for Virginia Tech.
Her second personal foul. Virginia Tech
Now Coach Alfano is
replaces Lisa Leftwich.
taking out her seniors, giving them a chance for a nice ovation.
Leftwich out with a couple of points. She was in foul trouble early on. And Gelfenbein has headed off to the Connecticut sideline.
Looks like she's laughing, actually. Bloody nose or something of that sort.
She appears to be okay. Kelly Hunt at the line, a 56% free throw shooter. And Lee has it.
Number 32, Pam Weber replaces Jill
Cynthia Lee, just a junior, 6'4". She will be back next year. As Virginia Tech leaves the Metro Conference and heads to the Atlantic 10.
Another rebound for Carter. Huskies averaging wins of 35 plus points, and today's score won't hurt that at all. Knocked out of bounds by Lee.
Virginia Tech substitution. Entering the lineup, number 15, Renee Maitland, and number 23.
In the first round, they had 105 points. That was the 8th time they went over the century mark on the season. Maine just had 75.
Re-entering the Connecticut lineup, number 40, Jill Gelfenbein, replacing Pam Weber.
And Gelfenbein back in, replacing Weber.
Little cameo appearance at the end of the game for Pam Weber.
Minute to go in this one. Connecticut headed back to the Sweet 16 for the second year in a row. And they will host the East Region, one of 4 spots in the nation, along with Des Moines, Iowa, Knoxville, Tennessee, and Los Angeles.
And for Connecticut last year in the Sweet 16, they beat a very athletic Southern Mississippi team. And they ended up facing the eventual national championship team in North Carolina in the Final 8. And that's where their run stopped, one shy of the Final 4.
In fact, Connecticut with connections to a couple of the surprises thus far in the tournament. Southern Mississippi was knocked out, as was Kansas, the team that gave the Huskies a run for their money earlier in the season. They were eliminated. Wisconsin took them out in the first round.
Looks like the Huskies' home win streak continues, now at 35 consecutive wins at home.
Only Tennessee and Virginia have done it better. And 32 seconds to go. Of course, the argument, too, could be made, Sherry, that over the last 2 years, Connecticut has the best record in the nation, 60-3.
Now 61-3.
61-3. Over 95% of the time they step on the floor, they leave the building with a win. Gelfenbein, no good. Tracks down the loose ball.
It's the Husky hustle.
Rose spinning, looking for Gelfenbein underneath. She gets the shot up, doesn't go. And tied up by Hunt and Lee. Connecticut will keep it with 3 seconds left. 31 wins, ties the all-time record, men or women. Here at Connecticut, the men went 31-6 in 1990. Better's runner doesn't beat the buzzer, but that's about the only thing that didn't fall for the Huskies today. 91-45, they go to the Sweet 16. Virginia Tech Hokies end their season in the second round of this NCAA tournament.
And another Sweet 16 for the Huskies. Now you saw Jen Rosati as she was walking off, had a little bit of ice on her right elbow. Kara Walters also carrying an ice bag. But for Coach Auriemma, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but other than those probably 3 to 4 minutes in the second half where Connecticut had a couple of turnovers, played a little sloppy with the basketball, this had to be a very pleasing experience. They executed extremely well offensively, and for the most part, they kept Virginia Tech out of anything they wanted to do offensively, Beth.
Yep. They came out of the gate once again very quickly, as they did against Maine, and never gave the Hokies a chance to catch up. And we are going to check in a moment with Rod Mashad, who is trying to garner Coach Auriemma for a couple of minutes, and we'll find out some of his thoughts on how things went this afternoon. 31-0 now on the season for the Huskies, and let's check in with Rod Mashad and Coach Auriemma.
Gino, what did you tell your team when you called a timeout at about the 11-minute mark of the second half to get them so inspired for the rest of the game?
I told them no meal money for the rest of the week. Actually, you know, it was just a matter of getting reorganized. I thought we were getting a little lax. We were just coming down and trying to, we're just being casual with the ball on offense, and I thought that it was just a lack of concentration at that point, and I just wanted to see if I could get them snap back into the right frame of mind. That's all.
Can you start to taste it now? Can you start to feel how close you are to the brass ring?
No. If this was next Saturday, I would tell you we were close, but as far as I'm concerned, we just won this little tournament. We have one more tournament coming up, Thursday and Saturday, and if we can do the same thing next weekend that we did this weekend, then I'll tell you.
You know in your heart that if you get this team prepared, and they are prepared, that the way they play, if they play Connecticut basketball, nobody in this country can beat you.
Well, you shouldn't say that till you've seen all the other teams, and there's a lot of good teams out there, and I would like to think that if we play well, we're very tough to play against, but that's why we got to play them. I don't see anybody calling me up to give me the trophy, so they must not be listening to you.
That's too bad.
You should call them up then.
Okay. Well, give me some meal money and maybe I will. Thank you, Coach.
Number 1,000. She doesn't get a lot of publicity, but she's a real workhorse of the team, Doc.
She is, Rod. She's a typical blue-collar, hard-working player. I think the beauty of Jamel is she makes each of the other players play that much harder. We recruited her out of Woodson High School in Washington, D.C. She brought with her a tough competitive ethic, a work ethic. And I was just so pleased to see the reaction. from the crowd, but also from her teammates today when she became the 12th player in our history to go over 1,000 points. I'm just proud of Jamel Elliott.
Well, some people may wonder how come you're not at the men's game. Why are you at the women's game?
Well, due to budget cuts in Connecticut, I can't afford the transportation to take me to Utah. And actually, I love watching the women's game. I'm going to be tuned in, watching the men's game, pulling for them as well. But I was here today, and I'm very proud of the women's results today.
You know, in the beginning of the year when we talked, you told me this was the best team that you had seen, women's team here at UConn in your history.
Absolutely,
Right.
And I've been here 23 years. Back in the days when we had about 100 fans over in the field house, and on rainy days, we had to get the towels out to keep the court dry. This team truly has the potential to be a national champion, and as long as they stay focused and with the great coaching of Gino, I'm still upbeat that they will be.
You know, I've covered everybody from the 1978 Yankees to the Giants to the Rangers to the Celtics. I've covered some of the greatest teams in sports history. This team, and I don't care what anybody says, ranks right up there with them. I believe that they're as good as any of those teams that I've ever covered throughout my career, and this is only a college team, and I know there's some great teams out there, but if they play the way they're supposed to play, they will win this national title.
Great teams have the same characteristics. Doesn't matter whether they're professional or collegiate. One, they're focused. Two, they have very high expectations of themselves. And three, when you watch them practice, and I do enjoy coming over and watching them practice, the toughest opposition they have is when they play each other. And when you come out to a game like this, probably some of the players feel it's a little easier than playing against each other. And I think those are characteristics of great teams, that they're focused and they have high standards.
You know, you and I have seen the Tennessee game, we saw the Kansas game, we saw all the Big East schedule, and somewhere along the line, these remaining games, now that we're at the Sweet 16, there will be a tough game, and we'll get to see how mentally tough this UConn team is, and I believe that's one of their strongest points right now, is that they are mentally tough and they are prepared to go the distance.
Well, they showed it to me twice. You're right. Both Tennessee and Kansas had moments in each game where they really were closing the gap, looked like they could take over, particularly in Kansas when we were playing in a hostile arena. The margin got down to 6 or 8, and you could see Kansas momentum, but UConn just regrouped, got its act together, and showed that they can play in a hostile arena in front of a hostile crowd and do well. So I'm still afraid. You know, I take every game one at a time. I'm scared that some tough team's going to come before us, but Gino has them focused, and I'm still upbeat.
Thank you very much, President.
My pleasure, Rod. Nice to be with you.
Okay, Beth and Sherry.
Ben and Jerry.
All right, thank you very much, Rod. Once again, the final score for this one, 91-45. Connecticut impressive as they head to the Sweet 16, showing where from here on out, most likely the competition will be a little tougher. This is probably the most difficult bracket in the tournament, this East region.
I think you're definitely right. Sweet 16, it's either going to be Alabama is the 4th seed, so if the seeds go true, that's who Connecticut's going to play, and they certainly are a tough team, an All-American Nisha Johnson of their own. But a couple of key stats is they held Virginia Tech to just 27.3% from the field. That's awesome defense. They've been doing that all year long. #1 defensive team in the nation. And offensively shot 60.7% from the field. The one area that could use a little improvement, what Coach Oriema said, was 20 turnovers.
Yep, and they forced some turnovers themselves and got a lot of points in the transition as a result, and that was one of the keys for them. The other big story, of course, Jamel Elliott. Career point 1,000 for Jamel as she becomes the 3rd member of this year's team to reach that milestone.
And I was very impressed with the president, Harry Hartley, knowing those stats.
Yes.
Knew that if she was a 12th player and is certainly up and in tune with this women's basketball team, as is the rest of the state of Connecticut.
All right, and it's on to the Sweet 16 for the Husky women. The men will try and match that later today on CBS, so check that out, a Husky doubleheader today, and the UConn women take care of their end of the deal. The final score 91-45. We'd like to thank Rod Michaud and Sherry Levin for joining me. I'm Beth Bowens. Also a special thank you to Paul Carlson, the producer of today's